2, 1. Mr. Jarboe, thank you for participating in our EASMC endorsement process. The interview will be recorded and posted on YouTube. Please speak up so your answers can be heard when you're answering the questions. My name is Dwayne Hancock. I'm the EASMC Vice President.
My name is Tiffany Thompson. I'm a Building Service Manager at George Washington Carver Elementary.
I'm Elaine Deems. I'm a special education paraeducator at Leonardtown Middle School.
Mary Ann Tomasic, Career Advisor at Chesapeake Public Charter School, Virtual Academy, and of course Technology Center.
Good afternoon. Katrina Mills, Building Service Manager at Spring Ridge Middle.
First question. If elected, what are your top 3 priorities?
So, number 1 priority for good governance is a balanced budget. So, obviously, seeing what monies and resources we have available coming in and making sure that they're dispersed appropriately and fairly. Second is there's never enough money to answer all the requirements that are in a community. So, my big goal is to look for more future and more public-private partnerships where businesses see skin in the game for the future of the children that are going through education, for example, and see investment as a good opportunity. And finally, security for the community as a whole, and that's just in general, but also in the school system.
Okay, thank you.
In your view, what challenges do you see the children in our county facing as they work to be successful in our schools?
I think societal influences are really causing some problems with kids as they're growing up nowadays. Certainly the impact of social media, though, has many good aspects, has very adversarial ones as well. It depends on how you use it, so it can be weaponized. And I really think kids growing up today, very different than when I grew up. We didn't have cell phones, so we didn't look in a little box in our hand all day for, affirmation. We actually had friends we talked to, and I think some of that social media push has really reduced the amount of interaction between students and kids growing up today.
Thank you.
Which considerations are most important when drafting and finalizing the county budget?
Well, there's 2 big ones, right? The pejorative amount of the funds that we get from the state and from taxpayers go to Department of Education and to the Sheriff's Department. After that, it's really a low percentage that goes to the rest of the county budgets. So they're obviously our 2 biggest priorities. Are also our 2 hungriest groups because the Board of Education superintendent is always looking for opportunities to grow and better the educational environment, and Sheriff's Department's always looking for opportunities to grow the number of people in the police force. And it's gonna, like I said, it's a balancing act for sure. But that's going to continue going forward. Those are definitely the 2 biggest priorities.
Thank you.
As a county commissioner, how will you include the voice of St. Mary's County Public Schools and public educators in your decision making?
Yeah, it's having an open door policy for the most part. When I was a commissioner last time, we had a great interaction with the Board of Education. We have a rule, a Sunshine Act, so outside of being on TV with the commissioners, and if you're not at a very public event, you can't just go over and sit down with the Board of Education and hammer out a budget. So the Board of Education does their own budget. We get final numbers that come in from the state of Maryland, and then we look at, what are all the asks and down to what's available. And and you have to have a good conversation with this. And you may be like, you're talking off topic, you're not answering my question, but I am, because what ends up happening is it's never in my lifetime have I seen the Board of Education gets exactly what they asked for. It's either a little bit more, which is very, very rare, or it's less, right? And so when it's less, superintendent and others, you have the opportunity. You can weaponize that if you want to. You can say, oh, we're just going to cut all the paraeducators. He's not looking at administration if you want to, and that causes a community uproar, and it's just unnecessary politics. So having a good and open, honest dialogue and saying, look, these are our limitation of resources this particular year. Understand you're working, especially when you're trying to do a 3-year contract with the union, that you have to be able to plan going forward. So I think the bottom line is open and honest dialogue.
Thank you.
Please share an overview of your campaign, including your key endorsements, fundraising, and campaign plans why you believe you will be a competitive candidate.
So having been a commissioner before and understanding how the whole process works, I think that's probably my most competitive edge. I have no current endorsements, but we're really early on in the process right now. I think a lot of the groups will probably wait to make endorsements until after the primary, and they'll wait for the general election. I think that answered the question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. County Commissioners passed a tax increase effective in 2025 to support the blueprint. As a commissioner, will you commit to using revenue as it was intended for to support public education?
Well, I could say yes, and then I look like I'm a hero, but the reality of it is yes, because we have to anyway. It's not heroics on anyone's part. It's a state requirement that gets flowed down onto the commissioners. I'll give you a case in point. Right now, the commissioners have a tax rate set at 3.2, and if you were to increase it to 3.3, which is allowed by the delegation as of last year, that equates to about $1.6 million. It sounds like a lot of money to us in this room, or watching this, but in the budget, it's in the hundreds of millions of dollars. It's not a ripple in the wave. So it's the blueprint is something that is mandated. It comes down. Every county has to do it. It's kind of a one-fits-all type thing for Montgomery County versus St. Mary's County, or Worcester County, or Hagerstown. I mean, it's I'm not a big fan of one size fits all, but in the end of the day, it is a state mandate that comes down to the county.
Thank you.
What specific revenue strategies would you implement to fully fund public education?
So fully fund is a tricky word. Fully fund is in what the superintendent asked for at the beginning of the negotiating period, or fully fund is what's appropriate. I think, again, I'll go back to my comment earlier. Resources are limited. So I'll give you a sense of this. On Facebook, I put out a couple short videos and asked people if you have comments, about these different aspects. Could you please reach out to me? And a good friend of mine, by the way, I know who she is. She said, "Can you explain the funding gap per pupil between St. Mary's County and the other counties in the state?" And I said, "Yes, absolutely. It's because we make too much money. I mean, the county is too wealthy to get state, federal revenues that come in as grants." So, her answer to me, her follow-up is, "Well, then how are the county commissioners going to fund the $20 million gap?" Well, they're not, because where would I get the $20 million from? The sheriff's department, other county agencies? Again, budgeting is a balancing act. So I commit to working as close as I can with the superintendent to do the best that we can, but I'm not making any false pretense here.
Thank you.
School districts cannot be expected to solve the mental health crisis alone. How would you leverage your role as commissioner to build formal partnerships with county health departments or private providers to offer wraparound services on campus?
So it's a back and forth on that one as well. So there's a couple ways you can do it. First and foremost, some of the money that comes out from mental health and public education comes through the Board of Education's budget. And the reality of it is, once the county commissioners set the budget for the Board of Education, the superintendent and board decide how it's expensed. We have no talk in that. So could more money internal to the BOE be expensed in that way? Sure. There are times where we have partnered with the Board of Education in pursuing grants for such things as mental health. And that's when there's usually an opportunity for the county to support with some money and get matching funds from an outside organization. And we have done that in the past, my last time I was a commissioner.
Thank you.
We are one of the largest employers in St. Mary's County, and our employees, make up a large part of the community. How would you support us in your budget?
Like anyone else. I mean, you're part of the community for sure. So I don't know that there's anything special that I would do that was different for people who work for the Board of Education or St. Mary's County School System. There's equality, and we treat each other similarly. I think it's kind of interesting. I'll share a quick story because I think we have time. I went to see, I don't know if you guys have heard about this, but the Lancaster Park, was leased to the county on a long-term lease. And during that lease time, we put over $7 million worth of improvements in that program. And this past year, the Navy reached out and said, "No, we want it back, or you can start paying us to use the property." So I personally went and met with a 3-star on the base, and I said, "Do you know what Big Navy's trying to do here?" And he had no idea. And I said, "Well, here's just a little hint. When you show So we have that in our community too. It's like, you know, even the folks who are here temporarily with their families at Pax River, you know, they're asking that same question, how are you gonna support me? And sometimes there's outside forces that, you know, you just have to address that challenge our lifestyles and sports down here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners often have equal power but differing viewpoints. Describe a time you had to build consensus among a group of peers with conflicting priorities. What was your strategy?
No, that's like my favorite question. Thanks for that softball. So when I was a commissioner previously, I was commissioner of District 1, so I represented a certain district. But actually, the reality of it is, once you're elected commissioner, you represent everybody. It's the same thing. It doesn't matter what your party affiliation is, you still represent everybody, whether they're independents, I will never vote in my life, or you know they're from the alternative party. It doesn't matter. You represent everyone. But one thing I definitely found, and then my background, by the way, is international trade. So I've been through NATO trainings of how to get different countries to agree on budgets and things like that. And I found sitting to the right of the county commissioner president, and I had Mike Hewitt to my left, and then Todd and John O'Connor on the other side. Sometimes they would just split and have this opinion like they weren't understanding what was going on. And I would listen to them quite carefully, and I was like, you guys are saying the exact same thing, but you're saying it totally different. So I would stop the conversation, and I'd ask the commissioner president, and he'd allow me to, and I'd say, okay, I'm hearing this from you, is that correct? And they'd say, yes. I said, I think I'm hearing the same thing from you. That's how you do consensus. There's a lot of times, especially in today's environment, where people just like to get angry and pick sides and not have a dialogue. That's where you struggle getting consensus. So I think, you know, just talking through, you can't talk through everything. I mean, sometimes you need to call it, but I was pretty darn successful during 14 to 18.
Thank you. Well, you made it. That concludes our questions for today.
All right.